fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
How to balance a career and family and hobbies and all the things that we have going on in our lives and still stay happily married. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, Like Diamonds, back again, Salt Strong, Unchurched. And this is going to be a really powerful, and this is something that confused the heck out of me. I did it wrong for so many years. It tormented me. It hurt the relationship I have with my wife. Thankfully, we stayed married and now have a different perspective on all this. And this came about because of a question from one of our amazing listeners here at Salt Strong Unchurched. I will not say the person's name because I keep all that stuff confidential, but it was based on one of the prior podcasts about anxiety, and something that was causing anxiety in his life was this just lack of balance, the balance that he hoped to achieve with his career and still family time with his wife and his kids, and then the hobbies like fishing, and still stay happily married just almost seemed impossible. Well, everyone listening, I am going to give you something that should cause instant relief. The perfect balance, like true balance, is an absolute myth. It is a mirage. Don't even try to attempt this at home, kids. It will literally destroy you. It will literally set horrible expectations, and it'll let everyone around you down if you think that you're going to find true balance. And here's why I know. One, I've tried it and I failed every single time I try to get this true balance. But two, I was part of a thing called the War Room. The War Room's still going on today. I did this for 2 years. It's $25,000 a year to join it. It's now up to $35,000. So, and you have to be CEO of a company doing a certain amount of revenue. I don't know what it is now, but it's probably a couple $1 million. So you're getting people who are the real deal, if you will. And that's like the low end. That's just like even qualified to get invited. And at any given time, there is 100 of these CEOs or even thought leaders that are allowed to be in War Room. And we would meet 4 times a year in different places around the world. And literally people would come in from all over. And I got to meet some big name authors. I got to meet people that you've probably read their books or seen them on TV as experts on CNBC and places like that. I mean, some really, really big name people. In this topic of a balanced life, right? How do you balance being a CEO of a 9-figure business, right? And still give back and go to church and have time to show up at your kids', recitals and soccer games and stuff. And this whole balance thing, it's an absolute mirage. I mean, every single person agreed it was impossible. There are times in your life where things might seem a little bit more balanced and kind of normalized, but for the most part, you're just trying to kind of control the chaos. And here is the best way to look at it. And this is what we talked about in the War Room. Think of a pie chart. We've all seen a pie chart, right? And in that pie chart, you put in your important things. Most of us are going to say, I'm just going to assume this is about a career, because that was the question that came up. So we're going to assume you have a job. So the job is going to be one. Sleep would be another one. These are things that you literally have to do every single day. Right? So sleep, let's just say it's somewhere between 6 and 8 hours for most people. That's now part of the pie. You can't take that away. If you do, you're now lacking sleep, and then you're grumpy Gus, and now you're affecting everything else around you. So you got your job as part of the pie. Let's just say it's 8 hours a day. You have another 8 hours here for the career. You've got, drive time and eating and things like that. You got some other things in there. And then you have, maybe time with the family, hopefully, right? Maybe you have a hobby like fishing or just replying to emails or social media, whatever it is that you do during the day, going to church, being part of your community. Maybe you serve on the board. All these things have to go in there. And any time that you dedicate more time to one, you're having to take away from others. There's only so many hours in a day, right? The pie represents 24 hours. There's no way that you can just dedicate 24 hours to one of those things. Now everything else is getting zero attention, and you've thrown the whole thing out of whack. And so this is why I know it's impossible just to stay completely balanced. There's no way, even though it sounds so easy. Well, gosh, if I sleep 8 hours and I work 8 hours, that saves 8 hours for my wife and kids. Hogwash, right? We all know that never, ever happens, right? Even though on a perfect pie chart, it looks like it could happen, it absolutely never happens. I'll give you a great example. I felt like this past week I've had really good balance. Right? Because there's sometimes where it just feels good. Like the work is going great, Salt Strong is growing like crazy, and we got all the right people in place. Everything's going well with Unchurched and the kind of the spiritual side of things. Family's going well. I feel like things were just going great, and all of a sudden, like in a 24-hour period, Jackson comes down with like massive diarrhea. I'm talking like pooping every second, where I'm literally just scrubbing butt all day. And then my wife, on the way out, she's in a rush to get to work. Top of her Suburban, we have a kayak roof rack. It somehow hits the top of the garage and takes the garage door down with it. I'm talking like massive mess. I can't even get my Tahoe out of the garage now. And I'm trying to get someone over here to fix it. I'm freaking out because I need to go somewhere. And I got Jackson screaming every second. Like all of a sudden, what seemed like it was balance, and in a matter of minutes, went from balance to complete chaos. And all of a sudden, I'm now taking energy away from other things in my pie and putting them towards these things, right? I mean, it can get thrown off so quick. And that's why I tell you, and hopefully this takes some stress off right away, is just know that the whole balance in this perfect balance wheel is an absolute myth. It is a mirage. Don't let it fool you. And if you start, and I read a book about this, about, how to find perfect balance and being able to give time and be present all the time. And I read this book and it made sense, right? Just like the pie chart makes sense when you see it in writing. And I told my wife, all right, things are going to be different. I'm going to give this much time and we're going to do a date night every single Thursday night. And we did for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, once again, something comes and just hits you on the back of the head and it throws it all out of whack. And if you've set those expectations that it's going to be like this forever and we're going to be just balanced, I'm telling you, you're going to let other people down. You're going to let yourself down, and it's going to cause frustrations. So I don't think it's fair to just think that this balanced life is normal, because it's not. Like I said, I've been around some of the most successful people. And even recently, I talked about on a podcast, hanging out with billionaires in the Bahamas. And none of these people have truly balanced life. Even though they have all the time and probably the people to make it happen, there are times when they have to dig their heels in and go all in on business, right? Whether it's travel or they're meeting with investors or whatever, where they're just all in, they're 100% laser focused, and they have to basically drop everything else. But there's other times when the business is going great and they get to spend all the time with the family, right? I remember some of my best vacations. My wife and I go away for, 3-4 days. And I remember one time in Mexico, and we have no phone, no internet purposely. And it was so nice. Like we had a date night by ourselves every single night out by the water. Oh, it was so amazing. And right. But yet my work at that point was kind of out of balance, right? I didn't get to spend any time on work or my kids who were at home. That was also a bonus for my wife, right? So it's really, really impossible to just have that perfect balance. And that's regardless if you're the CEO of a $100 million company or if you're just starting your very first job, right? If you've got your very first career and you're just trying to figure things out and move up the ranks, that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of energy. Sometimes it takes more than 40 hours a week if you want to move up the ladder, if you will. And kind of speaking of that, I want to share something with you. This is going to be incredibly helpful if you're working, and if you're retired, share this with a kid or grandkid. This is something I learned in that war room, and this is how the wealthiest people in the world are looking at life and how to add value, right? Because the more value you add into this world, usually the more that you get back. And there's really just 4 levels of value. This is a great way to think about it. And level number 1 is at the bottom. So this is the lowest. And this is what we call muscles. Okay. And this is basically just implementing things. These are the doers. And this is everyone from, the young person who's got their very first job in high school, flipping burgers at McDonald's, right? Like, and here's what I mean. That person, let's just say they make $12 an hour. The absolute most they can make is $12 times however many hours they work, right? There is no way you can make any more than that if you're just using your muscles. You're just an implementer, you were doer. Now, there's also doctors in there, right? And so there's lawyers in there that might charge $400 an hour, but if the most they can charge is not to poo-poo $400 an hour, it's a ton of money. but the most they can charge, that is their max. They are now maxed out at that, right? That's muscles, it's implementation. And it's a wide range from flipping burgers to being a doctor or lawyer and charging $400 or $800 an hour or whatever the top lawyers charge. So just know that's number one. And the goal is to get out of that number one and kind of get up to number two. And number two is what we call management skills or unification, right? And so if you're listening, you're a young person, take this in, because this is how you move up. And this, to me, is how you get more time back. This took me the longest time to learn, because I was the muscle guy. I just wanted to go in and just do the stuff. And I got paid, based on that, right? And at some point I was like, you know what, I'm gonna have to learn kind of how to manage people and to kind of recreate myself, right? And let's just take the doctor or the person flipping burgers saying, I can have my own burger stand. I'm gonna hire, 2 people to help me run it. Now you're managing people and you're starting to build on top of that. And there will be a time, especially in the beginning, where you have no time and everything is out of whack except trying to get this new entity alive and breathing. Even if you're not starting your own company, even if you're just moving up the ranks and managing people, this is the next level. The third level, so we got muscles and then just kind of management skills, right? Managing other people in a corporation, small business, your startup, whatever it is. Next, you have your mouth. This is what I'm doing right here, right? Communication. Let's talk about this. And I'm talking about celebrities. They literally use their mouth. Anyone that you see on TV, if you watch CNBC or the news, all the anchors, to literally Brad Pitt and the biggest Hollywood stars, the best singers in the world, right? The Jimmy Buffett, he literally uses his mouth. And I'm not talking about just communicating in terms of business, using your mouth to somehow make money and or inspire people, et cetera. And I would like to think Jimmy Buffett probably has a lot of extra time on his hands if he wants to. He obviously can choose to spend it however he wants, but people like that can make a lot of money in a really short amount of time simply using their mouth. That is a whole lot different than the kid flipping burgers trying to use his mouth, right? It doesn't matter what he says. He's only going to get paid for how many burgers he's flipping per hour, because he's paid on an hourly rate. So this is, I remember the first time I heard this and I was like, holy smokes, it's so simple, but it's absolutely so true. If you look at anyone on this ladder in terms of income and once again, time, right? In terms of how much time potentially they could have. Some, once again, are just want to work, and that's completely fine. That's their prerogative. But the higher you go up on this level of value, the more time and potential balance you have in your life. Now, the fourth one, the furthest from just muscles, is imagination. And this is something that not many people get to. I'm talking like Steve Jobs. I'm talking about Elon Musk. We're talking about people who are using their mind to create new things that have never been done before. This is the next level. This is basically, instead of going from muscles to management skills to your mouth, this is mind and even money. Now you're able to basically click your fingers and have investors say, I want to invest in this idea. I want to put money in this to give this some an airstrip, if you will, to let this thing take off, because I believe this could change the world. This is the next level. And those people like the Elon Musk, I mean, think about what his day entails. He now is the CEO of multiple companies, and same with Steve Jobs for quite some time, had 2 different companies that he was the CEO of, and both of them were doing incredibly well. And it's not like he's sitting in front of a desk, just replying emails and building spreadsheets all day. I mean, they're using their mind and they're using their imagination to do big things. And I just wanted to share that with you because it hit me. It was something that's always stuck with me from that war room. And this really is kind of the secret to get more control and really more freedom, right? I mean, I think that's what we're all going for in our careers is to be able to have the freedom to not have to always worry about money every single month, right? And I've been there. I've been where I had literally no money and it was paycheck to paycheck, and it wasn't fun. It was also an exciting time because I had a burning desire to get out of that phase. But I always had, and the bad part is you usually have to start with the muscles. You have to get in there, figure out something that you're good at. And speaking of that, that's my next tip. is, because we're talking about a career now, right? Because that was the question. Find out what you are best at as quickly as humanly possible, and then go all in, right? And for some of us, it's going to be our mouth, right? There's some people who are born to sing. They're born to be stars. They're born to be communicators, to be speakers, right? I mean, basically every politician has gotten there because they learn how to communicate. They basically use their mouth, right? They're not doing anything with muscles, right? I mean, think about these politicians. Some of them make crazy amounts of money. They write a book, right? They've learned how to communicate, and they use their mouth to speak and basically get nothing done. Sorry, I had to throw that low punch in with politicians, but you see where I'm going with this. They never, in any case, are using muscles. They're not doing anything that's really by the hour. They're using their skill set in communication. They're not that imaginative and coming up with brand new things, but they certainly are great at using their mouth in communicating. So anyhow, find out what you're best at. Maybe it is your mouth. Maybe it's being a manager. Maybe it's sales, right? Find out what it is. Maybe it is that you're the absolute best tree cutter. I mean, I had this tree cutter, which is a muscles, but he realized, man, I am so good, but I only as good as myself. If I get hurt, something happens to me, I'm kind of out of luck. So he built his own company, and now is in that management. He's in that number 2, and obviously using a little bit of number 3 because he's having to communicate with his crew. And this guy does the best work I've ever seen. It's timely. He did exactly what he said he's going to do. He even went above and beyond, which is rare these days. And I was like, doggone, I want to use this guy again. So all that being said, find out what you're best at. Everyone's been given a different gift. Find out what that is and go all in as quickly as possible. That means read books on it, go to conferences on it, whatever it is, that skill set you have. It could be computer programming. Once again, it could be sales and marketing, running Facebook ads. It could be being in front of a camera, right? These YouTubers now make good money and have, I would say, a whole lot more freedom than a lot of other people. So find out what that is and go all in. That's how you're going to add as much value as humanly possible and hopefully get some of that freedom back, which can relate to time. I would also say communication. This is really it, right? In terms of the question was how to balance a career and family and hobbies and all that, is communicate. You need to tell your spouse what is important to you, right? If a hobby like fishing is important, and if your spouse has a hobby or something that's important to him or her, you need to communicate those and make sure you guys set aside time for that. Make sure that it's very clear on how often you are going to go on a date night, how often you're going to spend time with the kids, etc. I would also say find a spouse who is supportive through the good times and bad. It's so easy to sit there in the time of marriage and say, yes, I'm with this person through thick and thin, and yet we see almost half of the marriages end up in divorce because they're not willing to stick with them through the thick and thin. Yes, I know there's some extenuating circumstances where people have done some really bad things, but regardless, that's still considered the thick and thin. And so I would highly encourage you, if you're not married yet or newly married, make sure that you have a spouse who is supportive. I certainly do. I was very, very blessed, because we had some good times, and, we had a couple of years where we didn't make any money, and it was stressful, and trying to manage kids and balance all this stuff the best we could, even though it was complete chaos. You have to have someone who is supportive in the good times and bad. The next one is build time in your calendar for what's important. And then communicate that with everyone, including your boss, right? I'll tell you what ticks me off. And if you're one of the employees of Salt Strong, know this, is that when I find out someone is in the middle of the day going out and doing something without permission, it just communicated. Whereas I'll just use Carol, for instance. Carol said, hey, Joe, it's really important that my health is good. I want to start working out. The only time I can really do this, is basically in the middle of the day, like at my lunch break. And I also going to take my son, I want to get him in better shape. And I'm like, heck yeah, because I know good physical health equals good mental health. You're sharper, you feel better about yourself. So I approve it all day long. But what I don't like is when someone I hear about, I'm like, wait, where's so-and-so? Oh, they're at the gym right now. Get that stuff approved. Obviously, if it's lunch break, you do whatever you want. But if in the middle of the day at 2:00, like, just get approval. I love approving stuff like that. And all bosses will, or most bosses will, if not, find a new one, but communicate that. And going back to this calendar, that's something that I do. And I have it starts at 6:00. It's on my calendar, and everyone on my team knows not to bother me. So at 6:00, I shut down no matter what I'm doing. 6:00 on the dot, and it's now family time. I'm all in on family. And that's a way for me to keep that wheel, if you will, that pie chart a little bit more balanced. Not always perfect. Sometimes I only get to spend an hour. Sometimes it's 4 hours. But that's my way of at least having in my calendar, and a little alert pops up and I literally stop what I'm doing. So build that in your calendar. Don't be afraid to build in what's important. And if it's working out, or if it is, reading fishing magazines or whatever it is, make sure to build time into your calendar. The other piece, when stressed, when there is anxiety, and it will happen, no matter who you are, no matter how well you've done all these other pieces, when it does happen, just take a quick little time out. And sometimes it's harder to take a time out when things are really heating up, but as soon as possible, take a little bit of a breather, time out, and just ask the question, will we be talking about this a week from now? How about a month from now? How about a year from now? My wife and I have these, right? And it's sometimes so important to her, right? It could be Shauna is not getting her homework done. It's already 9:45, and oh my gosh, it's going to be 10, and she's going to be tired tomorrow. And I'm like, all right. And she's had a long day, and so all this stuff is built up. I'm like, all right, Lauren, we're going to take a quick time out. Are we going to be talking about this a week from now? And she's like, no. I'm like, all right, then we can't get this wild up. But now, if kids rushed in the hospital, cancer, yes, we're going to be talking about this a week from now, probably a month from now. This is a big deal. We should probably dedicate some time to it. But so many times the fights happen from the silliest little subtle things like that. I mean, we could have had an all-out blowout and been freaked out that Shauna hadn't done her homework, and it's 9:45 and she's going to be tired tomorrow. So what? It's not that big a deal in the big scheme of things. Let's not completely lose our cool and flip out about this just because it's causing a little bit of anxiety. And I do it, you have to do it very calmly, right? And vice versa, right? If someone just said, man, Joe, shut the heck up, you're flipping out about nothing. Hey, Lauren, let's real quick, like, are we going to be talking about this a week from now? And just be quiet. And she's like, all right, you're right. And I'm not trying to be right. I'm just trying to give her a different perspective on this, right? And easier said than done, but you have to do it patiently. But that's just a great question. Like, are we going to be talking about this a week from now? What about a month from now, a year from now? And if the answer is no, then it's really not that important. It's certainly not important enough to stress over and cause a ton of anxiety. We already have enough things in our life that can cause it. It's not worth it. So the other thing, get better at saying no. I struggled with this so bad, and especially when I was younger, and especially when I was, I worked for this company for 10 years, and I just wanted to say yes to everything and every opportunity, and it would pull you in so many different directions. And guess what that does? Every single time you say yes to something, you are taking away from that circle, from that pie chart. Think about it. Every single time you say yes to something that I assume is going to take some time, you're having to say no to something else that you already said was important to you. This is so critical. I mean, all the wealthiest people in the world do this. The Warren Buffett talks about his whole thing. He's like, man, I say no, 90 something times for every 100 questions I get. He's like, you just got to get good. It's saying no to things that truly aren't going to make you happy, that truly aren't critical, and that truly don't fit in your kind of personal mission statement and in your pie chart. Get better at saying no. The final piece, bringing it back to Salt, Strong, Unchurched, one word: pray. Pray for guidance. Pray to God to give you guidance, to open your eyes to the opportunities that He wants you to go down. To pray for vision and to pray for wisdom, right? I mean, Solomon at the time could have asked for anything. God basically gave him a hall pass to ask for anything in the world. He could have asked for riches and all this stuff, and he asked for wisdom. And in reality, got it, and then got, the riches that they came afterwards. So ask for wisdom. Just pray for wisdom. It's something I pray about every single morning on God, open up this path. Show me the path that you need me to take, my family, that you need me to take this company and myself for all the skills and the way that you made and built me. Just guide me and lead me. And so at the end of the day, just pray with your spouse, right? If you are having an issue, and issues will happen. Like I said, this whole balance thing is kind of a myth. It's kind of a farce. And there'll be times that it's way out of whack. And that's when it does cause some stress. And so many times it's good just to take a breather and just pray. So I hope this was helpful. I hope, everyone got something from this, regardless if you're 20 and just starting your first job, or if you're 40 kind of in the middle of your career, or if you're 60 or 70 and kind of towards the end of your career, or retired. Maybe you've got a child or a grandchild that could benefit from this. And definitely remember those 4 levels of value. I mean, this is not just about making money. That this really is more about that freedom and control in your life. And so it starts at muscles. I'm just going to reiterate it. So just think muscles, and that's hourly, right? Muscles means hourly. It's no matter what you do, if you don't show up and you lose your muscles, you ain't getting paid, right? You're really paid on your muscles, on implementing something. And that can even mean, being a high paid attorney, but still you're capped out at how many hours that you can work. The next one is management, meaning replicating yourself and managing other people or a team of people. That is the next level. The next one's mouth, right? The people who have been able to use their mouth, from professional singers and rock stars to Hollywood stars to politicians to basically every talking head we see on TV is literally using their mouth. They're not using their muscles, and none of them are getting paid by the hour per se. They're using their mouth, and that also includes authors. Anyone who's able to find a way to communicate and to get paid from it, for the most part, they have a whole lot more freedom than the people on the bottom. They get to kind of set their own terms, if you will, when you figure out how to make money with your mouth. And the better you are, usually the more time and freedom you have, and in reality, the more money you probably have. Then the final one is using your mind and your money. That's the imagination side of things, coming up with things new, or figuring out new ways to do things, or new widgets, new products. That's a whole nother level. And obviously, we see what happens in our world around us. I mean, those are the people, the movers and the shakers, who are, creating entire new industries just based on their thoughts. That is the whole next level. And it's usually people start at the bottom, almost in 99% of the case. And even the Steve Jobs, had to have, a crummy job in the beginning and be a janitor or whatever he did as a young age. And you move your way up and figure it out. So just remember, that was a very, very powerful one that I will always remember. So guys, appreciate you. Love you. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully it helped answer some questions, at least on how I look at things. And if you have any other feedback on this or things that have helped you out, let me know in the comment section on the blog, or just shoot me an email, Joe, at saltstrong.com. I'd love to hear from you. Joe@saltstrong.com. Otherwise, I'll talk to you guys in the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.